All right, welcome back to my channel, True Crime Fans. I'm your host, Tim Solberg. We are bringing you episode 2 of TDS Live. I'm going to turn it over to Dallas, who is my partner in crime. Dallas, you want to give a little introduction?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Dallas. My channel on YouTube is just another channel, True Crime Documentaries. I'm happy to be here. I'm super excited actually, and a little nervous at the same time because we're going to be talking about my court case, custody battle that I've been dealing with, and my experience in the family law system. Um, so yes, I guess we want to wait a little bit for people to kind of kick in, or do you want to just start off right away?
Yeah, no, we'll give it a couple of seconds. I do have to give a shout out to the best admin in the world behind me for the people that know me. Other side, I've got Cooper in here right now, the Wime, right? Not the true crime fighting Doberman, but we've got the Wime in here tonight. He wanted to be a part of it, and yeah, it should be a lot of fun on this one. So for all you folks that are tuning in. Next week, we're going to look at some of the stories in Dawson Creek, specifically looking at Cole Holsack, Renee Supernant, and Darylyn Supernant, trying to get some visibility onto that. So if you're interested in hearing our take on that, please join us for episode 3. We will be here on Friday nights at 9:30 p.m. and we will bring different cases for the folks that did leave comments. We'll look at some of those cases as well, and over the next few weeks, we will definitely work on that. So, that being said, I'm going to take a back seat here and turn it over to Dallas. I haven't heard this story either. If you have some questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll be asking questions along the way, and we'll go from there. So, Dallas, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, thanks. So yes, I guess with the court system, um, it's unfortunately been such a huge part of my life. I think a lot of people go through situations where you kind of feel alone, especially when you're going through custody battles, high conflict court cases. Um, just it seems like it's a never-ending road, unfortunately. So I've been in the family court system since 2016. Um, Still unfortunately going strong in it. It doesn't seem like there's much end in sight. But at the same time, it is, I feel when I first started off, I had a lot of hope in the system,
Yeah.
had a lot of, um, had a lot of, what am I trying to say? A lot of respect, I guess. A lot of respect for judges, a lot of respect for lawyers. Very naive to what I know now, to what I know in 2016. Unfortunately, where I'm at today with the court system is I don't trust it at all. I'm not too sure what has happened between COVID since COVID has hit, but I just feel like there's a lot of families being a lot like torn apart with unethical behavior. My family has been unfortunately victim to this. I have two beautiful kids. Um, I've had some very awful people enter our lives who are unfortunately lawyers. Had just got recently in front of a couple judges that are pretty iffy, like, what are you doing? My cases are extremely high conflict, very, very high conflict, where it has gotten recently. I have an organization that has gotten into our lives for a family violence prevention program just to assist us with some things. So we have a caseworker now. Um, so with the court system, I guess if you are starting off on it in a custody battle or even in any kind of case, it's kind of be very aware of who you invite into your life. Sometimes these lawyers are not for you. These lawyers will kind of fool you into thinking that they're going to represent you. Unfortunately, in 2019, I was struggling trying to see my son. I was kept from my child by the other parent, and I had hired this lawyer, and my mom had helped me get her involved, and she blatantly just took my money and just like, I'm not helping you. And it was so hard because you invest in this person who feeds you stuff, and then all of a sudden they turn around and they're not going to help you. Unfortunately, that happens to a lot of people. um, complaining about these people, going to the law society, trying to file complaints is very useless, unfortunately, in this industry. I've had to do that a couple times and learned the hard way that um, you're only one person and really there's really nothing you can do. You kind of have to deal with the abuse, which is unfortunate. So this person, anyways, she had taken my money. She's not going to help. She's not going to get me into court. The huge runaround. This happens to a lot of people. Um, what can you do about it? Is literally just look for another lawyer. Unfortunately, there's more bad apples than there are good. I have learned a lot of lessons since 2016 to where now I refuse to hire a lawyer. I'm just going to represent myself. Um, with that, it's like asking a ton of questions, kind of knowing my situation and just being, it doesn't really matter what I bring to the table. It's kind of who I'm talking to, and that is a judge. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, when you are in these situations, their opinion is the only one that matters. Um, so, with that being said, is where am I at today with my court systems? Is well, court cases, sorry. I'm a little nervous to talk about this stuff. Um, Dealing with abuse, people have taken very advantage of my kids and advantage of me, to where I have this really awful, awful lawyer involved in my life. And she has done very awful things to my son. Um, it's almost, it gets to the point where what do you do next? Um, where I'm at is it's almost borderline. I might have to like go to a reporter. That's where I'm at. I think that's like my next step. Go to the legislative building, try to write letters, try to bring awareness to what's happening just in my life because this is not just happening to me, it's happening to a lot of other people. This lawyer had tried coming after my daughter and has done extremely awful things to us by being unethical. Um, where we got in front of a judge recently and he blatantly blamed me for all of it because I had shared everything that was going on in our lives. And at the end of the day, he really didn't care. So in return, I was pretty much told, like, which I have on transcripts, that I'm single and I live in an apartment and I'm pretty much not worthy to be a parent. So why am I here, like, complaining about it? Um, and everything was like my fault. Like they found some rules and stuff, and they totally like praised this lawyer, praised them on what they've done. It's okay. You have a golden pass. Um, and which is unfortunate because um, she has done this to numerous people. Like I've talked to other people regarding her, and they've all had similar stories. So I don't know, Timmy. If you want to jump in, I'm kind of like losing track of where I'm going with all of this.
No,
So
no, that's good. I think that's a really good preface on, what your experience is. And I do have a lot of questions, but I want to make sure that, we get your story out. And the more that we do
yeah,
this, I've got people reaching out that, have asked, like, can I tell my story of what I'm going through? And there's a couple of things that just stick out right away. First thing, just to clarify for everybody, you are a single parent, right? And you
mm-hmm.
essentially you have to get up, go to work, and then this is hard-earned money that you're paying for a lawyer who's supposed to represent you, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like when obviously during COVID, like everybody had lost their jobs and stuff. I had
Yep.
that affected me.
Yep.
I was on EI. I wasn't able to afford a lawyer. During this time, I know so many parents had went through this. They weren't seeing their kids
Yep.
because the other parent was being like, well, you can't. Everyone has to isolate. We have to keep our distance. So many parents had gotten like alienated from their children because of COVID. This lawyer had used that to their advantage. They're like, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do now. You
Yep.
can't come near us. You can't see your son. Like, you can't do anything. And the courthouses were closed. So, when you don't have the money to get a lawyer, but yet, say, for instance, in Canada, you can get like, it's called legal aid.
Yep.
You have to be in an income. Like, there has to be a bracket of income. But if you're above it, you can't get help. you can't get a lawyer. And there's so many ins and outs that what self-represented people don't know. Like you can't file. Like you have to have a lawyer file an application to get your cases started. Like you can't do that alone. And if you don't know what you're doing, it becomes such an awful mess because you are kept from your kids, right? Or you're just dealing in such an abusive situation, you don't have the money to retain a lawyer, which could be up to $5,000. And some lawyers will not do anything until you pay that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to help you. You have, like, I won't even talk to you
Yeah.
until you pay that money. And
Yeah.
that's where, like, the reason why I started some of the things like opening up a little bit more about my case, I was talking to another lawyer who was a criminal lawyer. He's like, I will never ever touch law or family law because of how corrupt it is. Like it's just a moneymaker.
Yeah.
And once you start becoming a little more aware of where you're at in the house you're going to, you start really seeing the true colors of the place. And it is. So that's why I'm like, I will not dump any more money into this house. I'm like, I'm done. Like, you've taken enough of my money, and
Yeah.
now I'll just do it on my own as much as the best that I can. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you are the only person who could represent yourself. Like I've had a lawyer, he's like, you can't say that stuff. You can't tell your story. They don't want to hear it. But at the end of the day, like you're being completely violated. There's
Yeah.
domestic abuse, there's family violence, there's child abuse, and they
Yeah.
just don't want to hear it. And
Yeah,
it,
and that's why people now are coming out and saying, "Hey, I want to tell my story in a different forum."
yeah.
I do want to pause for just a quick second. So, no
Mm-hmm.
contacts, always representing on the channel. So, working on cooking up a storm, a vegan storm right now. We appreciate your support always. We appreciate you listening, and I do appreciate the posts with some of the ideas too. I want to hit on that COVID thing real quick because
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, anybody listening to this, we're talking about the Canadian court systems. There's some difference in the U.S., but they're very similar. The COVID thing with Canada was absolutely nuts to me. Like the lockdown measures that Canada took was absolutely frustrating. It was infuriating. Um, I couldn't go visit my mother during the
Yeah.
COVID years because she's technically considered an essential worker. And so I'd have to use that crap ArriveCan app that now we're seeing in the government. It was a huge waste of money. Taxpayers had to pay that. And let's be
Mm-hmm.
honest, anybody that's been on here, I don't get real political, but I'm not a huge fan of Justin Trudeau. I think that
Oh,
he has shown time and time again that he's okay to apologize for stuff that he's done, but he's done those things, and everything that a human being shouldn't do, he's guilty of, and he's okay with that. Has nothing to
yeah.
do with the Liberal Party at all. Again, it's not political for me. It's that individual I think is a bad individual. Whether it was like SNC Lavalin, the Jody Ray Wilbon case really frustrated me, and then obviously that was another one that was frustrating. You got more stuff coming out with overspending and the ArriveCan app. Like this stuff just keeps stacking up. And,
Yeah.
full circle back to COVID, me trying to come visit my mom, I was shut down. I just couldn't come visit her. And so I couldn't see her for a couple of years based off of COVID alone. Now, we
Yeah.
struggled over here too, right? Like loss of jobs, the country shut down. But there was some ability, like if you wanted to see your family, and to put this into context, right? A couple of things. One, you're being told you can't see your kids because of COVID, and that's
Yeah.
used as a weapon
Yeah.
rather than the safety of the people around you. Number one. Number two, I kind of went through this as a spectator when I was a kid because obviously my sister and my mom. Lisa's dad took her down to the islands, right? Brought her to Campbell River. My mom couldn't do anything because he was still in the same province. And I saw her go through the fight of her life for almost 3 years to get that kid back. And same thing that you were talking about. I'm not going to tell her story, but a lot of the same things. And we're talking about the Canadian court system. This is not a court system that's third world. This is not happening halfway across the world. This is happening in Canada, and Canada is always the beacon for the rest of the world to look at for peace, happiness, friendliness, fairness, right? And what blows my mind with what everything that you've just said to this point is I've seen people, not physically seen them, but you hear of stuff like, murder, right? Like the Barbie murders, right? Like Carla Homolka doing 10 or 15 years in jails after, a gruesome murder. You're almost on 10 years going through a custody battle and
Yeah.
still going to court today, going through
Yeah.
lawyers, and now getting enough confidence built up to say, hey, I'm going to represent myself. So, first of all, kudos to you. The question that I have is, during that time, you know, what was your confidence like? And how beat down do you get from the court systems and the lawyers that just constantly, they want to take your money, but at the end of the day, you're not really making progress, and you always feel like not only are you fighting the system, but you're probably fighting the families of other people, and then just that time not being able to see your kids.
Well, it's so unfortunate. When when I first started off with my son's dad, it was very just chaos. Like the relationship was chaos. It was extremely abusive. We had court. There was I started drinking
Yeah,
because I just wanted this to stop. Like just leave me alone. I don't know how to handle you. You're just too much. Like we were never dating. It was just the constant bombarding I'm going to remain on top of you until I break you. And that's was
yeah,
his motive. Like, I'm going to break you. And unfortunately, he did. And
yeah,
he did for a long time, was he broke me. Um, but what happened in our case is that I wanted him to stop so bad that, if I give in, I'm going to give you like 50-50, like
yeah,
just 50-50, leave me alone, move on with your life. Okay.
yeah,
And unfortunately, like he was on supervised visits for 2 years, and I still had our son, and everything was fine with us. Like we kind of kept our distance, but at the same time, this person kept telling me, he's like, I'm going to teach you a lesson.
yeah,
Just wait, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And sure enough, like when the supervised visits ended, he had a really nice lawyer, and she's like, hey, enough is enough. You have 50-50, leave her alone.
yeah,
Like enough, right? So 3 months later, this is the lawyer that has just been horrendous in my life.
yeah,
I did not know her. I thought, okay, you know what? That's fine. I read one of her affidavits and it was all garbage. It's like, you know what? It's okay. It's like I'm blaming the other person. All of a sudden, my son goes on a visit, and like how you said, like what Auntie went through
yeah,
was not returned.
yeah,
My son was not returned. And the sad thing is because you're absolutely right. Like the other parent can do whatever they want because one, they're the parent. Two, if you remain close, you can't do nothing.
mm-hmm,
You can't. They don't have to return your child. If there's not a police enforcement, you don't need to do anything.
yeah,
You have to sit and wait for court. And this is so unfortunate because when you're in high conflict, it sucks because you're the one like whoever is like the good parent or like the one who wants it to stop is the one who's going to go through the most hell, and the high conflict parent is the one who it seems like gets away with bloody murder, right? Like
yeah,
it's like how come they can do whatever they want and I'm here fighting for my child to come home, but yet I'm the one doing all the work for some odd reason. Like I never did this, but it's just the way the system is. It's like, well, what are we supposed to do? We can't do anything. You have to get into court. But then all of a sudden, say in my case, the other parent was just constantly lying about me. But then how I handled myself, because it went on for like a good month, that I just was fighting back and forth with everybody. Like I couldn't see Noah. And it was just like all of a sudden, I just started drinking again. I
yeah,
just drank. And that's what I did for 6 months, unfortunately. That didn't help my case. But
sure,
at the same time, like I burned my life to the ground,
yeah,
unfortunately, being in that situation. And that was, yeah, that was 5 years, 6 years ago
yeah,
when I did that. But, lesson learned, like to where am today, like sober in
yeah,
recovery, haven't had a drop of alcohol in 3 years, don't smoke, don't do any of that. Um, I've been trying to get sober since 2019. and fell twice. And what I've learned about myself is that I would rather handle this sober than ever drinking ever again.
Yeah.
And that's like the best that I could have ever done for my kids. But the court system is just kind of a mess, I think, at this moment. I've had some really awful things happen to me in the court system, and I just don't know where to turn. But
Well, first off, congratulations on that, because that's not easy, right? Anytime you
yeah.
want to make changes and you
Mm-hmm.
self-reflect and you leave that self-pity to go into the self-reflection and then the self-rebuild. That's a huge milestone, Dal. Very proud of you. The
No,
second
thank you.
thing is, who would ever imagine that a victim turns into a villain just based off of going into a courtroom? Um, and that's what we're really talking about right here, because when I'm in the U.S., a lot of people think that Canada's easy and everything's all sunshine and rainbows, and that's just not the fact, right? Because as a parent, and you said it best, if one parent takes the kid, like they're entitled to that kid. They don't ever have to give it back. You have to go through the fight of your life to get it back, and you are scrutinized from day one.
Mhm.
Everything you've ever done, everything you'll ever do, becomes, it gets put in the court of law, and then the person that has the kid usually doesn't go through that, right? Or at least that was my experience, and I saw that with my
Yeah.
mom. Not quite as long as of a fight as yours, but it broke her too. And it's not my story to tell. I won't tell her story, but as a kid, I think I was 10 or 11 years old, and I just remember the long nights of hearing her cry, the soul leaving her body for a long period of time, the blankness, um, the thoughts of failure all the time, because she was a victim that was turned into a villain through the court systems. And I
And that's
remember, yeah, just a lot of court visits, and it just didn't make sense, and it really was driven by lawyers.
you know what, and that's what like that's my major problem is the unethical behavior of lawyers, because like the code of conduct, like you're not allowed to create family violence, you're not allowed to create domestic abuse, you're not allowed to protect child abuse, like you're not allowed.
Yep,
It's unfortunate how they do it so conniving, and like they have their sneaky ways to provoke.
yep.
I don't need to do it, but I can tell my client, hey, guess what? You can hypothetically do whatever you wish.
Do
Don't
you,
worry, I'll still represent you.
yeah, do you feel like money talks in Canada? So if I have more money, I'm gonna
100%.
get, yeah. So more money, more representation. I can kind of bully the person on the other end.
Well, yeah, recently I was at the courthouse just trying to retain a restraining order. So I'll
Yep,
tell you how unethical this place is.
yep,
So I'm dealing with a high conflict lawyer, and they're associated with this one individual that has been a plague in my life for like the past 6 years. So they're like used to be associates. So unfortunately, someone is being represented by this person by another law firm, and they're sharing between two law firms on my cases.
yep,
So this is how like nuts my cases are, is that two law firms are going after both of my kids, but it's joined by one person.
yep,
It's really awful. But this lawyer was not even a part of our case. Sends me a nasty message, like an email, and I politely like respond, you know what, unfortunately, like you're not representing so and so. If you can just have his lawyer contact me, like I'd greatly appreciate it. So then he responds back, threatening me again. And I'm like, okay, I call the law society. I'm like, what can I do about this? Because I don't want to respond to this individual. Like, I don't know who they are. So, whatever, let bygones be bygones. I like go to work. Things are quiet, and then all of a sudden, he emails me again. So the two previous emails don't have no one CC'd. There's no
yep,
one CC'd at all. But then he emails me again, and he's threatening me now. But now he has the other parent attached to the email.
yep.
So the parent now thinks, guess what? I have permission to do this now. So then what they do is start threatening me too, and
Yeah.
threatening my home and threatening my kids. It was awful. So I'm at the courthouse trying to get a restraining order. Like enough is enough. Like
Yeah.
I'm sick of these people. And the judge just denies me. He's like, no, sorry, whatever. So then I go back again. They're like, hey, well, you didn't serve them properly. I'm like, I know I served them.
Yeah.
They just didn't show up for court. So then they didn't put the restraining order into place.
Yeah.
They brag about it. And it's so awful. But that's like how lawyers will provoke high conflict people to threaten another parent or threaten like their home just to start problems. And then they just do it so sneakily. I just don't like it. It's just so evil and unethical in my eyes.
Yeah, you hear about that a lot.
Yeah.
Especially like when it comes to domestics and bully your way out of trouble or bully your way out of a domestic
Mm-hmm.
or unfortunately, and I don't know either of the people, so I'm not talking about them, but a lot of times, when you're in that situation, that person feels like they're empowered to, just constantly make life a living hell, which is to me insane, right? You'd also mentioned before that you're going through appeals. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like what's the process of that, and how much stress does that put on you? Knowing, I mean, you're working full time, you're taking care of two kids, you're single. Like that's not easy for a normal life. But then you got to add like an appeal. You're representing yourself.
Yeah.
You're constantly working on your sobriety. Like that's a lot of stuff going on. Like how do you keep all of that together?
Well, it's getting a little easier. Like, I've been in therapy now for the past 2 years, so that helps a lot.
Yep.
Now that the kids are getting a little older, that also helps. Like, we're getting a better routine at home, which is like my safe place. But with the court stuff, it's like never ending. Like, I literally have a trial coming up in two weeks. I have to prep for a trial, and now I have that appeal. But the appeal process is, which the scary thing is, it's that they don't have to accept it.
Yeah.
So you could waste all of this time and energy, money, because what you need is that you need all your transcripts. Um, Unfortunately, the case that I'm appealing a decision that was made in December, but my trial lasted 4 months,
Oh,
4 month trial.
yeah.
So you have all of these documents, and nothing is cheap. Um, you could spend thousands and thousands of dollars just to appeal the process just for it to get denied.
Yeah.
And what I had to do prior was obviously file my application, and then I had to get all of my transcripts, have proof that I ordered them, and then send them all in. Like there's like thousands of pages, and then I had to go in front of a judge with opposing counsel. But get a load of this. So now opposing counsel is supposed to submit paperwork to the courts to get a court date.
Yeah.
That was 2 months ago, and I still haven't had my court date because they're not filing anything. And it's hard because I keep calling like the court coordinator.
Yeah.
She's like, there's nothing you can do. You have to wait.
They know how to play
So
the
now
game.
it's been 2 months. Yeah, it's been just prolonged, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work in their favor.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
You know,
I couldn't imagine going through that.
it's
Fortunately
hard.
for me, um, I've never had to go through the court systems. What always kind of why I was interested in hearing your case. Well, one, there's a lot going on in that, and that's happening all over Canada. And to be realistic, it's happening all over the U.S. Right? Um, so that was the first piece, but the second piece is, you'd always think that the courts are there to determine and do the right thing.
No.
And what we're seeing is with a lot of the documentaries that are coming out now, um, a lot of times they miss it. And a lot of times that ends up with, a partner that, could get hurt, little kids that are getting abused, like you said, ongoing. And because the court's trying to take it at face value, I get that. I'm not a judge, right? I'm not trying to be a judge. I understand that. It's easy for me from the outside looking in to say, hey, this would have been an easy decision, right? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. Um, but they're trying to do their best or whatever the case is. For me, I think that there's a lot of friendliness that happens between like prosecutors, lawyers, that kind of stuff, right? And I do think that money talks as well. But I've been fortunate enough not to go through that. But I have, because I spent 3 years with Verizon representing Hopeline, which was a program for domestic violence. I went to big universities all around Oklahoma, did some things in Illinois, did Oklahoma University. We did Telling Amy's Story. Um, it was mostly domestic violence, not so much about child custody, but the amount of times that I saw law enforcement, lawyers, prosecutors, and the courts really fail the people that needed them the most was very consistent. Now, sometimes they get it right. I'm not saying they're always 100% right or 100% wrong, but it's like a story that just repeats itself over and over again of the people that need them the most, because of not being able to afford or because of getting just so broke down, not knowing what to do because you feel like, your country, your government, they're turning their backs on you. Um, and that was pretty eye opening for me those 3 years. Um, and then just knowing obviously mom's case with Lisa. I always had an interest in court after that because of some of the things that I saw, and obviously I didn't see both sides, right? I just saw one side, but for me, just having that the amount that it impacts the family and the amount it impacts little kids along the way, that's profound. That's something that's going to live with them on for their lives, right? And I'm sure you're
Yeah.
probably seeing some of that now. Um, that's you're strong for going through it, right? Um,
It's
it's
hard. Like,
yeah,
honestly, Timmy, like, I tell you the truth, like, there's been moments where I'm like, you know what, I can't anymore. Like,
yeah,
I should just give up. Like, I've had people tell me, like, I've had this one lawyer recently, and they're like, you should just stop. I'm like, you know what? You have like these moments where you're like, I can't put up with no more of the stress or the heartache or the worrying and all like the problems that it brings to the table.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's like I can't walk away either. Like, I've had those moments where it's like I think I might be done, but at the same time, I'm not. I'm done because I'm done. Like I'm being done
yeah,
because of my emotions, but at the same time, it's like I can't be done. Like I have to keep moving forward. That's why I appealed my court case. I'm like, I'm not gonna stop. Like even my own lawyer, he's like, you should stop. I'm like, I'm not stopping. So do whatever you need to do to help me, and I'll do the rest. Like just point me in the direction I need to be, and I will do it. Like when I went to that appeal and talked to another judge, it was in a higher court, thank goodness, and
yeah.
she was so nice. Like it was a breath of fresh air. Like I'm just like, thank God there's actually some good people in this house. But I came prepared. Like I had a box. I'm like going there with all the stuff. I read all the transcripts. I'm like, I'm like brought new evidence to the table. I'm like, I'm ready for whatever today brings. We're just there to book a date, but whatever. It was like, but I intimidated the other lawyer. I'm like, bring it on. I was
Yeah.
asking the judge questions and I'm like, she's like, that's such a good question. I'm like, okay, well, do I need this? Do I need that? Like, you tell me what I need and I'll bring it.
Well,
They
I
know
think
because,
yeah. Go ahead.
oh,
Sorry.
go ahead. No, no, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think that's the Solberg gene, right? Like, there really is no quit, and at the end of the day, I think the perfect word that you just said was pause, right? Like you just pause for a few minutes because you're trying to gather your thoughts and then, trying to plan and execute better. Because I live with that every day. That's just something that's been passed down, and I see that in our aunts, uncles, cousins. Like there's just no quit, but there is definitely pause, right? When the going gets tough, it's okay to pause and say, hey, I got to reassess the situation. But
Mhm.
that's that's how, like, all the stuff that you've accomplished up to this point, a lot of people don't have the willpower or the drive to be able to power through that because it's hard. The hurt
It is hard.
really hurts. You know what I mean?
You know what's honestly saved my life, and this is sounds silly, is that TikTok. Tik, it
Tell us
was it
how.
was
Yeah,
because like Tiffany,
yeah,
she's like, you know what, you need to go on TikTok and go on the narcissistic abuse
yeah,
victims, like go on there and listen.
yeah,
Like I tell you, like that app like literally like was a game changer for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm not alone. Like I'm
Yeah.
not like, and it was like so refreshing. It's like, okay, you know what? If they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Like you just feel like that's why you want to share your stories is because so it gets out there. It's like I had one lawyer tell me, he's like, and this is something that everybody has to be very aware of, like when you go to that house, is it literally does not matter what you bring to the table. It's literally the person you're going to talk to.
Yeah.
And that person could be miserable that day and literally ruin your life.
Yeah. Isn't
And they
that
don't care.
crazy? Like,
I
just whatever they did the
I
night
know for it,
before,
yeah.
they can make a decision that's going to impact your life forever, but it only impacts their life for, the 30
30 seconds.
seconds that, yep.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
was
the
in front of a
decision and it's final.
right. I know. And you know what? And it's hard, especially when you have so much hope that your case is going to be heard, that you're going to get in front of somebody that will listen to you. And then all of a sudden it's like crumbled in seconds. It's like, ugh, like I
Yeah.
just wasted my whole time like talking to you.
Yeah.
This happened to me in November. I was there for a hearing, and this judge comes into the room, is miserable. She's flinging her hands up in the air, and she's like, "Who booked this like this? I was in docket all day. I'm not doing this hearing." She's like, "And I'm just going to decide." And just awful,
Yep.
so awful. I had to get that transcript. I'm like, I have to get this transcript because no one's going to believe me.
Yeah.
Like this woman was just wretched. Needless to say, she like did quite a number on me. I'm like, thanks. I'm like, you're great. But I was talking to a lawyer about her, and he knew exactly who I was talking about.
Yep.
Like, I didn't even say her name. I'm like, that's awful.
That
That's
is
awful.
that is awful. I want to pivot a little bit from this
Yeah.
because I think that you've talked a lot about the struggles, the pain,
Mm-hmm.
the hurt, the work that you've had to put in. And if I summed it up, and it's not my story, but very alone feeling throughout that whole process, right? Like lone wolf. I want to pivot and ask you a couple of questions just about hope, future, especially for folks that are out there that are listening and might not have some hope now. Like, what's the hope that keeps you going? What's the hope that what's the vision for the future end game? If you get everything that you should get, what does that look like?
My, I just want like, I just want to be a parent. That's my thing. Like, I just want both my kids to be able to be with me and also with the other parent. But I
Yeah.
also want a safe parent. I don't want to be the only one that's safe. I don't want to have to be the only one doing all the work. Like I want a co-parent, like if
Yeah.
that exists. Like you know what I mean? Like you want resolution, but at the same time you're when it's not happening, you do lose a little hope and you feel like you're always going to struggle. But then you have to change your shift. Like I just need to be a mom now and I need to move forward with for my kids and do the best that I can for them and for myself because who knows with that house or with the other parents, like they just kind of you have to learn to let them go and
Yep.
focus more on you.
Yep.
And when you start doing that, like I used to always like wake up, that's the first thing I thought of. The last thing I thought of, I thought about a million days of what these people were doing to me, and I was a miserable wreck. And now like I never slept, I was like hardly ate, like I was not healthy.
Yep.
Now I sleep amazing.
Yep.
and and it's just like you just have to start learning how to take care of you and what's best for you because what's best for you is what's best for your kids.
I think that's inspiring just from a standpoint of the way that I interpret that is, one, you get beat down so much, so hard to the point where you want to break and, maybe even broke, but you pull yourself back up, you get that confidence, you build that strength, and then the barriers that are in your way, in this case, lawyers, you say, hey, I'm going to bypass you because I can do this, right? I'm going to go to court and I'm going to talk to these folks because I can do this. I've learned enough to know how to approach this and proceed, right? Not
Yeah.
only that, again, working full time, single mom, making that happen. That's not easy. That's how I grew up, right? That's not easy. And to make that happen, that's just, you got to make miracles happen every day, right? Just to put that normalcy in life. And I think, if anything, that's such an inspiring message, but such a hopeful message for folks out there that are going through the same thing, to say, hey, look, like, it is possible. And when you're at your weakest, you got to start looking at what that hope looks like and start pulling yourself out. And, especially and I'm not in your shoes. So I guess the question there would be, it probably felt really cold and alone at some point, where, either people that are talking to you don't understand, haven't been through it, or can't help you, right? Did you ever have
Well,
that?
that's when this all started. Like, so in 2018, when my son wasn't returned home on a visit,
No.
um all of a sudden I was like started being alienated from him, like the phone calls, like I wasn't allowed to talk to him, like I wasn't allowed to see my son. I went 9 months without seeing my child, and for the first 6 months I drank. I literally burnt my life to the ground, like burnt it right to the ground. Like there, I was like couch hopping. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know who to talk to. Nobody knew what I was going through. Everyone's like, I don't pick yourself up. And I'm just so Debbie, like, I'm just like so down that the only way that I wanted to do, I just wanted to sleep. If I was awake, I was drinking so I could go back to bed again and
Yeah.
just really hope. And that was the vicious cycle. And I went in front of a judge and I told him what I was doing. And he asked me, he's like, "Do your actions deserve rewards?" And I said, "No."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Tell me what I need to do, because I right now, like, my life is shambles. Like, I'm crumbling. Like, I couldn't stop shaking. Like, I was just like so like such anxiety." But that was like the best thing, is that, I went to treatment. I got educated on stuff. And even then it was still hard, but you just need to be like that wake up, like, okay, come on, me now, you got to pull yourself together, you got to move forward,
Yeah.
because you're not, like, I was like no good to nobody.
Yeah.
And that was hard. That was a dark time.
Yeah,
That
for
sucked.
sure. Well, and that's, again, like, you did such a good job getting out of that, but that's, you know, that would be easy to get there, especially for somebody like me that's only seen it from the outside, from my mom's perspective. I've never lived that perspective, right, on either side. I've been fortunate in my life that um, I've never had to do that, and but don't get me wrong, I've had bad things happen and have gotten into those spots, but that's, again, the inspiration of, how can we help? And hopefully, just listening to your story, for me, I'm thinking, you know, if I know somebody that this is going on with, be there to listen and maybe not quite understand, right? Because I don't think you can put yourself, like, I can't put myself in your shoes, but I can listen, try to
Mm-hmm.
understand, and then just be proud of you, right, for all the things that you've been able to accomplish. And the other thing that you've said, and you said it twice, was just, you were open, you were honest, you were vulnerable in court, and you threw yourself, like, what are they called? You throw yourself at the mercy of the court to say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
what do I need to do? I mean, that's pretty courageous stuff right there, right? And that, to me, and I don't know, and that's why I'm, like I said, I didn't know your story before today. Um, that, to me, is where I'm like, that is what's going to get you to the finish line, because it's the right thing. And I truly believe in karma. Again, I don't know the inner workings of it, but that's what gives me hope of somebody like yourself being able to get to that finish line. Now, obviously, the work, I don't see the work, right? I see the end result. I don't get to see what you're living through every day. I don't pretty crazy stuff. So I'll tell you, lots to think about, Dal.
I know.
Just a ton to think about. I appreciate that you were even vulnerable enough to get on and tell your story about that. Like, it's I know that that's a pretty sacred thing, and I know that it can't be easy. Um, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you kind of just give the conclusion, and is there anything else that you want to share, or any questions that you have? We'll kind of go from there.
Well, if anybody who is listening to this and is going through something obviously traumatic and you don't know where to turn, reach out to somebody. Like because you obviously like being doing this by yourself, it's you almost sink because like as much as I'm like I don't want to share my problems with other people, I can handle it. I can do all this. You can't. And the best thing is like starting to reach out and get that confidence back is like because you're a human being and you're allowed to have a good life and you don't deserve what's happening to you at all. Um, find very safe people. Like I'm glad that I had the confidence to even do this, even though like I'm like shaking. But it's like I'm just glad that I am where I'm at right now because some people don't get this far, unfortunately. Um, some things don't end as well as we hoped.
Yeah.
Like there's some awful things that happen and I'm just I'm thankful where I'm in a safe place and my kids are safe. So I'm just glad to be here today.
No, that's awesome. What's the name of your channel again?
Just another channel.
Yeah, and it's been pretty successful so far,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
No,
is
that
awesome.
you know what's so funny? I actually started it to get my mind off of court stuff.
No, I mean, I'll be honest with
Yeah.
you, Dallas. When you reached out and like I pulled it out, I was like, oh man, Dallas is doing really well. Um, I like the true crime stuff, and to be perfectly fair, I did the same thing to get my mind off of work, right? And I love true crime. I know this is a little bit out of that realm, but I thought that the the story needs to be told. I've been thinking a lot about the Canadian court systems, not only custody, but a lot of the things that I'm hearing that I've got friends that have been through it, and then just watching what's happening in Canada right now. I mean,
Oh,
it's my home country, right? So I'm proud of my home country, but I just feel like everybody has their backs to the wall for one thing or another. Taxes are super high, talking about more carbon tax, and I know everybody wants to do the right thing, but it's really hard out there right now. So I look at that from a Canadian experience, and I'm like, number one, I'll never move back there. Um,
okay.
like I moved to the States. I love the States. Is there some opportunities here? Yeah. I'll tell you this. I learned real early when I came to the States. I was told, don't ever talk about politics, race, or religion. And I stayed true to that, right? I try to stay away from all of that
Yeah.
stuff. Because one, nobody really knows my background when I come over here. There's a lot of assumptions that are made. Two, I don't understand it, so how can I really talk about it other than ask questions? But there's a lot of people on multiple sides that are trying to tell you so many things, and you got to decipher that, right? So that's one
Mhm.
downfall of the U.S. But one thing I do really like is you really can come here and build a dream, right? Got to work hard, no question. But there's a lot of things that can happen. Now the court system's here, not much better. Once you're in that system, you're in it for life. And there's a lot
That's
of
the thing.
documentaries out there, yeah, that
Yeah.
a lot of difficulties, and it can get pretty scary. But at the end of the day, I do appreciate you coming on and telling your story. I know we're co-partners with the podcast.
Yeah.
So obviously you being on here is normal. Me being on here is normal, but you to tell your story and be this deep, I think for our second podcast, that's going to be pretty deep, and I think it's going to touch some people. So that being said,
Yeah.
for anybody that's listening, our next one, again, we are going to focus on the three people that have went missing in Dawson Creek in the last, essentially 18 months. And I know there's a few other people that could kind of fit in there, but Cole Holsack, look that up. Essentially went out to a bar one night. I think it was New Year's Eve, if I remember the story correctly. His mom posts on Facebook daily. She is trying to find Cole. Anybody that knows anything, rumors, even rumors, call that in. But he disappeared. He was at the bar, disappeared. Renee Supernant, last seen in a gas station after she went to a bar, disappeared. Nobody's seen her again. Daryl Lynn, kind of the same thing. Daryl Lynn Supernant. Um, Dallas and I are going to spend some time doing some research this week. I do
Uh-huh.
have some friends in Dawson Creek that I'll kind of tap. Now, they're not going to tell me a whole lot. They probably don't know a whole lot, but I kind of look for some of that ear to ground rumor stuff. But we really want to get that out there because my passion, if anybody's been with the channel long enough, is missing people because I just don't think that there's enough eyes on it. Some of the cases that have stuck with me is like Marshall Iwasa, um, uh, Corey Braun. That's a huge one, very similar to the Brian Schaefer case that you were talking about, Dallas.
Yeah.
These are all cases that we want to cover coming up. So, for any of the folks that are in here, we do appreciate the feedback. We're going to look at some of those cases as well. If there's something you would like to hear us talk about, or if you've got a really good case, we definitely want to bring some guests on. We've got some that are going to be lined up in the future here that we'll get to tell their stories. And anything you want to see from our podcast, because Dallas and I have made a commitment to make at least 20 of them just to see where it's going to go, try to improve it every time. Today was really good. I think that, the story is going to hit home with a lot of people. And if you've got questions, Dallas will answer some of those questions. I
Oh,
can't
that's
really,
very
yeah, I can't answer the questions for a story, but if you've got any questions on the cases. So, Dallas, if you want to just do an outro with your channel and, where you're at with stuff, we'll end with that and we'll see everybody back here at 9:30 next Friday. So I'll turn it over to you, Dal.
Well, no, thank you everyone for listening. I do appreciate it. So if you want to catch, obviously I'll be posting the same stuff on my channel. Just another channel, True Crime Documentaries. I post shorts daily, so you can check them out. But the videos will be once a week. Obviously, the podcast once a week. And I'm glad to be here again. So super excited for what the future holds. Thank you.
Yeah. So Cold Truth said, hey, all new here. Sorry. I cut it off. Oh, glad my passion is in missing persons. Yeah, love it. You have one for me. Am I interested? Absolutely. Shoot over a message. And yeah, we're definitely, and we appreciate you coming by. That's super cool. So that being said, I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. I got a quick turnaround time, got some volunteering stuff to do tomorrow, but we will get on to the next case. Please, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, leave it on our channels and we'll go from there. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend.
Hi, everyone.